All right. We are now recording, and just want to say officially welcome to those of you who aren't here, but will be watching this recording later on Facebook. So glad that you could catch up with us this week. Jordan is here, Kathy is here, and we're in session 2 of Staying is the New Going. And this week, a little bit of a recap from last week. We actually just kind of spent a great deal of time talking about why this book resonates so much with folks. What is it about the overall theme that sort of touches the human spirit, if you will? And Kathy, I know you kind of caught up on Facebook, but is there anything that you wanted to add about why Staying is the New Going is resonating with you so much these days?
I've spent most of my 30 years of being married trying to find that place that we're supposed to be. And it always felt like it was going to be something else. And I couldn't have handled this book even 5 years ago because we moved from Junction City and it was like, okay, we're supposed to go do something big and something great. And it's taken a long journey of going, nope, this is right where we're supposed to be. And even Steve said, yeah, he's shocked that I am content and happy to stay in Topeka.
Yeah. That's interesting that you mentioned the impact piece. We talked a bit about that last week as well, but it really kind of picks up with this week because of the chapters that we're discussing this week, 4 and 5, have a lot to say about longevity and the fact that impact comes with staying put for longer than just a few years.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the longest you've ever lived in a place, Kathy?
We lived in Junction City for 7 years, and that was way too long. I mean, usually it was 3 or 4 years wherever we were. And after a year, I was like, let's go. It's time to move. Because Acts 1:8, about, it was time to go into all the world, And so I kept looking at Jerusalem and, Judea and to the uttermost parts of the world. And I was like, we're supposed to go to the uttermost parts of the world. And it's like, no, we're supposed to just stay right here. So
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. Good point. It's not everyone has to live the life of Paul, right? Take, just for example, since you mentioned it, just take Jesus's brother James, who I'm pretty sure really never left home to proclaim the gospel. He stayed put and shared the gospel amongst the Jews of his day. And so, not everyone's meant to be a Paul. But there's plenty of ministry to be done just right here where we are.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Well, I thought I would just ask you guys this. Alan talks about it in chapter 4, just kind of going to his favorite spot, and in Colorado Springs. Do you have some favorite spots that you love to go to in Jordan and Allendale, Kathy and Topeka? And I'll share too.
I have one. The Cobb State Park that has this really big hill right near the governor's mansion, and you can hike back through the woods and go down to the river. I love that place. And so,
okay.
And then Gage Park has some really neat places to go and just park your car and have a quiet time. I've done that several times too in the few years we've been here.
Good. Yeah. I have not been to the governor's mansion yet, and I'm going to have to do that. I see a lot of people post pictures there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about for you, Jordan?
Well, I like to ride my bike, so my favorite thing is to ride down to Grand Valley and then ride around on the campus of the college. So there's like sets of stairs where you can ride down the stairs.
Yeah.
And, there's a bridge over the ravine, and there's a new park that overlooks the Grand River. So I like to ride around there.
Yeah. That's great. I probably have a couple of places that I enjoy. I would agree. Gage Park here in the city is a great place to go. Just a great city park with a lot of variety. And there's also a local zoo. Just for your sake, Jordan, we have a municipally owned zoo, and it's not too bad. it's actually pretty good. And then also, just again, kind of sticking with the outdoors theme, but there's a place up here called Iliff Commons, which is a running and hiking prairie land, really. And it's a great place to go and clear your head, to walk and pray, and just explore, really. Yeah. So, yeah, lots. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just wrote that question as I was reading. It's like, just, what are your favorite spots to go? What are some of the things then that make, your city great, for you? And feel free, if you want to add anything to it, you certainly can. It doesn't have to be just, well, what are some of the things that make where you live so great?
Well, I love to go to the Capitol, and every time I go, I get something new out of it, because just getting the Kansas history, and I was brave enough to actually go to the top 2 years ago. I'll never do it again at my age. And it was fine going up, and then looking out over the whole city was pretty incredible. But coming back down, I thought I was going to die. Really, it was the stairs. Have you ever been up there?
I've seen it from below, but I've not,
No, you can go all the way up to the top where the Indian is, and coming down, the stairs are pretty much, they're just such a tiny stairs, and there were a bunch of kids behind me making a lot of noise, and I thought, they're going to knock me over and I'm going to fall to my death. But I've been back and just told the kids, I'm not going up that high. You can go with the young adventurous people. So, but it was a pretty neat moment to look out over Topeka and just think, I love this city. I really fallen in love with Topeka, which is huge, because I always thought we'd go back to Texas. I'm from Texas, and I've spent probably 25 of our married life dreaming and wishing how we could get back to Texas. And about 5 years ago, I realized, no, we are Kansas now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Jordan? Just what makes Allendale so great?
Well, Allendale is really in the middle of everything. It's
Sure.
30 minutes to Holland, it's 30 minutes to Muskegon, it's 30 minutes to Grand Rapids, and then it's just a quiet community with nice neighborhoods and a great church and friendly people, and a nice local park, and Grand Valley's here, so it's not really a tourist attraction and kind of thing at all. It's just a nice place to live, and you go other places to see. Go to Muskegon for the state park and Muskegon Lake, and Holland to sail, and the Tulip Festival and all of that. And
Yeah.
it's, into Grand Rapids for Art Prize. It's all centrally located of, every place that we like to go and do things. So.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like you're just a short drive from Muskegon on the lake or Holland on the lake to, big city Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Michigan? Is he in Michigan?
Yeah, it's West Michigan. Yep, West
Okay.
Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the connection, for your sake, Kathy, Jordan and I used to attend the same church about 10 years ago, up until 2010. And so we were part of the same church. He's still at that church.
Gotcha.
And my wife and I left because we I took an internship at another church nearby for my schooling. So yeah, that's our connection there, and we've had some good conversations over the years. I miss those conversations, by the way. So for what it's worth. But anyway, yeah. So the Topeka is a big jump for my family. We lived about 5 minutes from Holland, Michigan, in a little bedroom community called Zeeland, population of about 5,000 people.
Wow.
And so now we're living in the biggest city we've lived in, with a population roughly 125, 130,000. And we live on the outskirts of the city limits, actually. I would consider where we live to be the most rural home, or the most rural neighborhood we've ever lived in. It's 10 minutes, 10-minute drive to the grocery store. Most people don't think anything about that, but when I used to be able to walk to the grocery store, it's a big shift for us. And so some of the things that I think that make Topeka great is there is a history. I think there's a long history here of families staying put. There seems to be a real desire for people to have land, which is interesting to me. And so I've just kind of noticed that people are maybe not necessarily shifting or leaving the center of the city, which is where Kathy lives. But just seeing folks' desire to own acreages and to have a more, I don't know if it's solitude necessarily, but just something about having more land that is really attractive to folks here. So for me, there's a lot of attractions, just things here that I don't necessarily have to go to Lawrence or to Kansas City to have fun. There's a lot to do in Kansas City, and you can catch, lots of basketball, like college basketball in Lawrence. Or if you really want to drive to Manhattan, you can drive to Manhattan, right, Kathy?
Oh, yeah.
And watch the Wildcats play. But yeah, really, one of the things I appreciate about this city is it has a lot of things for us to do, and I think it's getting better. Would you? There are just some things that are starting. Just when you kind of think, and I don't know how it is for Allendale, Jordan, but one of the things that I noticed, and it's pretty obvious about where we live, is that there's also a history of like closings, businesses coming in, they're growing, or big corporation comes in, they start a Kmart, they start a Walmart, they start a Big Lots, and others too. Factories have come and gone over the years. And I think it's taken its toll on the folks of this county. And so one of the byproducts of that, of course, then is we've got these monstrosities of buildings, just big boxes that are vacant, and nothing is happening with them. And so I don't know, is that fair, Kathy? What would you say?
Well, we lived in Junction City for those 7 years, the longest place, which is right by Manhattan. And when we wanted to really go shopping, we either go to Manhattan or we'd come to Topeka. So to live in Topeka for me is, yay, we've got, I'm 10 minutes away from the mall, which I hate going to the mall, but it's there if I want to. And I hadn't really thought about, I've noticed a lot of the restaurants closing because we love to eat out. And so I have noticed that, like, there's one that's been there for a long time, Casa Romo, over by Landon Middle School. We went there the other night and they were closed. And I'm like, no, it was like a death. So I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah.
So I have noticed that. But
Yeah.
But there's a lot of history. There's such a rich history here. And I love the Topeka History Geeks and staying connected with that. And he had touched on the book about the pain and the division and the, what drives you to tears and grief over your city. And that's why I like living in Central Topeka is I'm right in the middle of people hurting. So, I mean, I know there's people hurting everywhere, but just seeing the kids that, don't know another way of life than poverty, extreme poverty, and just on their own, kids on their own. And that grieves me. So,
Yeah. One of the things, it's always good, I'm just constantly digging up facts, and some interesting statistics. And I can't speak for the county that Jordan's in, but I can speak for the Holland, Michigan area, where the median household income is somewhere around $75,000. And you compare that to, like, say, Topeka, the median household income is somewhere around 50. And there is
really drive that up.
Yeah. So there's a significant economic gap between our two counties. But interestingly, enough, we're seeing some signs of revitalization and restoration taking place, and that's been really good to see. It's not just, we talked about last week, not just giving handouts thinking that that's going to be helpful, but actually helping people, doing the hard work of helping people up and out of, economic crisis or poverty.
Right.
Yeah. So, one of the things that struck me, and it's not too far into this chapter, is just the statement, do what you can with what you've been given, where you've been given it. So what are you doing? What are you doing these days in your neighborhood, or just personally, to be and share good news? Maybe it's at work. Maybe it is in your neighborhood. Is there anything that's brewing, or stirring up inside you that you're thinking about next steps, or maybe you've been doing something and it's been going really well for you? I'll give you an example. This year, starting in January, really wanted to try to meet some new people, especially at the church. Some folks, it's been really important for us to try to establish some friendships. Really feel like in almost 4 years, while we have very good friendships, especially at the church, and we know a lot of people, we just don't know very many very well. And I can't spend all of my time, nor do I want to spend all of my time just hanging out with the pastoral staff. We have a great time, love being with them,
Right.
but I don't want my circle to be limited to just them.
Right.
And so we had made a conscious decision this year to just have dinner with a new family every month. And so in January, we invited a family over, February, March, and in April, or coffee, you know what I mean? Like some social environment. And so that's been going pretty well. I'd love to do it more than just once a month, but just kind of as a social experiment for us to see, how it would go. I think once a month is a pretty good pace. But are you all right, what are you doing with what you have where you are? I know it's kind of a broad question, but how's that going for you?
I feel like I'm immersed in ministry at work and trying to specifically pray for some friends there. And I had actually looked at transferring. Steve told me he wanted me to transfer from the school because of just some problems that have been brewing for the past 2 years that I haven't been able to resolve, no matter how much I've prayed and confronted people. And so right at spring break, I did put the transfer papers in, and there were several things that happened. This book was one of them, but just to realize that I need to persevere and stay in the midst of this issue that is affecting a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that are hurting, and I've been praying that I would be a bridge to help with the healing that's going on amongst our staff. And so I'm excited about that. I've been really, when the negative stuff is all coming at me, I've been really trying to help. I mean, I want to really be intentional about listening to people's hurts, but at the same time, you don't want it to become a gripe session all the time. And so, yeah, that is where I am really invested right now. And a lot of these people live like right around us. I mean, they're within a mile. We're within a mile of our school. And so that's probably been the biggest one for me, is just really, I mean, in fact, the other day I told one lady, I said, well, everybody has blind spots. Because, you know, they're not able to see, they're only seeing it from their perspective. So
Yeah.
that would be mine.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, we desire, and I shared this last week, but it's always good for me to keep it out there, because I feel like it's just an area of an accountability for us to try to get to know the neighbors that we do have, and there aren't a ton. I mean, if you could keep going down the street, yeah, sure, but you know, there's nobody that lives behind us. It's a field. There's an abandoned home directly in front of us, and then there's Velma, who she. I don't know how old she is.
I would say the name, Thelma.
Yeah, Velma's really old.
Oh, Thelma.
and doesn't get out much. And then you know, there's a very young couple right next to Velma, and then this couple we're trying to get to know to the other side of us. And so trying to be very intentional about when they're out, I'm out. My wife lovingly accuses me of like stalking them, but I think
hurry, they're out. The neighbors are out.
Right. Well, and I think that that's what it's going to take with them, because I've learned, you know, in being here, they're not going to pursue me.
Right.
Otherwise they would have by now. Or at least I think that, maybe not, you know, there was an interesting statistic, right? You're just talking about how 4 years kind of feel the push or the pull to maybe move on to someplace else after about 4 years. But really it's at year 5 where you know, he's asking pastors about when they really felt like they were rooted and making a bigger impact. It was at year 5. So if the studies show that most pastors move after 4 years, then they're 1 year away from, you know, breakthrough, really. And so I'm kind of trying to, you know, I just try to adopt that philosophy with my neighbors, and I don't want to give up. But I've learned that, and so maybe I'm a year away from them maybe being more interested, but I've really had to own this pursuit of them and be more intentional that, yes, it is kind of funny, and there may be some truth about it, like I'm stalking them, but if I don't, I won't ever see them.
we actually have a big front porch on our house, and I like to sit out on the front porch. I think I got that from my parents. In fact, before my dad died 2 years ago, he had actually been up the year before and was, coherent enough. He ended up declining real quickly of Alzheimer's, but he was in August, the years before he died. He was on my front porch and just taking in the scenery. And so when I sit out there, it kind of reminds me of him. But our next door neighbor, his name is Eric. I don't know his wife's name, but they've told us a couple of times, and so I'm feeling kind of guilty that I can't ever remember her name. But they have a nephew that is a fourth grader, and so, as you're talking, I'm thinking I need to find out that woman's name so I can at least call her by name. But we always chat because we're sitting on the front porch. I'm sitting on the front porch, and he sits on the front porch, and she'll come in and out, and Steve comes in and out, and so we do have that. And then the people across the street are older, and when we had all 11 puppies recently, I hollered at her and said, "Come look at our puppies." So I don't know her name. I'm really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to write them down, so I've got them written. I know Eric next door because he talks to everybody. So
sure.
But
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. So I'm gonna share one thing about that, and then we can keep talking about. But it's related to what we're talking about here to help kind of get around some of this. It doesn't. Depending upon where you live and how many people use it, there's a great app that you can put on your phone. And so I'll just share my screen with you.
Okay.
And it's called Nextdoor, the app. You can download it to your smartphone if you don't have it already. Or you can go online. And you register with Nextdoor.com, and so I am in the far north Topeka neighborhood, right? So it's broken up into neighborhoods, and you join based on what you input your address. It adds you to the neighborhood, and everybody else who is a part of Nextdoor, you can get their names from the app. Okay.
Cool.
So there's a little cheat for you. So you can register, and people post stuff on there all the time, like garage sales, lost puppies,
fun.
Cool.
All
kind, like last week, there was a daytime burglary not too far from us, and so there was a lot of and it happened to be in our neighborhood, and the cops were out looking in the woods behind our home for them.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a lot of chatter on the app about like, what's going on? Have they found the burglars? And so it's a great app. It's just a tool. And if you're curious, like just for names, if you're wondering, maybe they're on there, maybe they're not, but you can get your neighbors' names by clicking on neighbors, and so I can see my neighbors' names that are around here, and then there's even a map. So I have 76. Yeah, 76 folks are listed here, and just uses a Google map. Everybody listed in green is using the app. So there's not a lot of folks using it in my neighborhood, just a few. And it could be very, very, very helpful.
I like that.
You could send out block party invites. So, if you wanted to ever have a block party or a house party, you could do it through Nextdoor. So pretty cool tool.
Cool. Yes. Thanks for sharing that.
You bet. So, let's see here. Trying to get back on my mind, back in track here. The impact of longevity, chapter 5, dislocation to relocation. Is there anything that stood out to you? Maybe it was a discussion question or something that, you were prompted by as you were reading. that you wanted to discuss?
We still have Jordan. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
want to talk over you.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, it's not necessarily from chapter 5, but I really just like how he says near the end of chapter 4 that it doesn't matter how you're wired. You can learn to engage with people in your place with the love of Jesus. He goes on to say, digging deep with people in your place isn't about being an introvert or an extrovert. It's about being a child of God and unleashing his love to others in extraordinary and ordinary ways. And so there's no perfect strategy for doing this. It's just, it's about having courage and trusting in God, and relying on him to give you that courage to engage, your neighbors or your coworkers. I wish Jacqueline was in on this. I really love she works at the Gap at the mall, and she is by far the oldest person on staff by, I don't know, 15 years maybe. Mm-hmm. Like the managers are like 25, Oh
my goodness, yeah.
And I mean, they're young, and a lot of high school students, a lot of college students work in there, and she loves it because she would kind of, just similar to you, Kathleen, like it's kind of her mission field.
Right.
And she doesn't have to go, she just shows up and people start talking, these girls and these young men, they just start talking about their lives, and she just kind of speaks to it and speaks to them when she senses like that God would have her say something. And so for us, her being at the Gap has been a blessing, because not just financially, but I mean, goodness, I don't think either of us would have imagined, her having some really deep conversations with some of these young guys and gals about their lives, and like some of them are really dealing with some serious and heavy stuff, and being invited to their high school graduation parties. That's fantastic, awesome. Right? That if you like to think that maybe they're not just doling out, invites for their graduation party, but that they said, "Hey, I thought of you. I'd love to have you come to my high school party." So I think that's a good sign.
I like that. I do. That's cool. On page, I think it's 81. He talked about just the longevity that we've been kind of in the Happy Meal society, and we want things served up fast. And he says, I've been on the journey of recalibrating my vision from immediate impact to longevity. And I think I have spent most of my life in the hurry. We got to go and make disciples. There's this harvest, and it's ripe, and we got to hurry up and bring it in. And I've really been learning over the past few years to no, it's going to take a while. I mean, it's taken this whole school year. I am just now feeling like I'm starting to connect with a couple of these kids that are really, really tough. And it's going to be a long process for these kids to know that, that they can trust me. And some of them are starting to. And so I love that he said that we long to experience the beauty of spiritual banquets in the time it takes to serve up a happy meal. And something just doesn't add up. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So chapter 4.
Yeah. I hear you. I don't know if I'm personally responsible for, or how responsible I am for, and I can't speak for any other pastor, but I'd like to think that churches are being faithful to that, in the sense that, yes, the harvest is ripe. It may be it may be ready, but we don't have to. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but we
I
don't
know what
have
you're
to
saying.
don't have to hurry.
Yeah, well, I always felt this hurry. I mean, from the time I was a little kid, and some of it may just be my own personality, but it's like God has called us to go. And some of it may have been the denomination I was raised in, that it was very, I mean, we were told, you're saved by grace and not by works, but somewhere in my head was you had to work. And so I was always this, hurry, hurry, hurry. You don't want to let God down. And I don't know if just as a child that thought was stuck there or what, but it's taken even a lot of counseling to be like, I had this really, 90, probably 80 or 90-year-old gentleman tell me probably about 6 years ago, do you think God would love you more if you were in Africa doing what you're doing? And I said, wow, that's a powerful question, because I've had that mindset for years that I need to go. And he said, you can go right where you are. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to, I need to go. so yeah, this is, I love it. It's more about the covenant. And I think just being obedient right here is huge. So I love that.
Yeah. Jordan, was there anything that you wanted to add or speak to on this? You've been listening well.
Yeah.
And
well, I guess what I got out of this chapter is to look for areas, immediately around you instead of always looking to go somewhere else, and to always be looking instead of waiting for an event to go and do something, to always be looking. And I guess I really, I've been starting to get involved with our, the Hispanic church that's hosting our one of our congregations, and I've been getting more involved there, and I just feel like this is confirmation that I'm moving in the right direction, and building relationships. And
so. That's good. I like that. I like I think that really leads well into this question. One of the discussion questions, just straight from the book, really struck me. How have you experienced the favor of longevity among people? Right.
Okay.
I mentioned.
I am on video chat. Sorry, Lizzie just came in. She's like,
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
That was a Bible study. I'll talk to you in a minute. That's okay.
I mentioned, just the favor of longevity with Jacqueline at the Gap, but for me personally, man, I think I need to sit down with that question for a little while and wrestle with it. But one of the things that I'm grateful for is the opportunity to serve on a board of a local nonprofit called The Bridge. And it's not something that I pursued, but they pursued me. And I think, I love what they're doing with our just overall, but particularly with Lunch Buddies and working with this organization to expand Lunch Buddies into the actual school district in which we live. And so just to see that, I think that's one of the ways that I've experienced the favor of longevity here. And definitely experiencing it with a young girl, Naomi's age, 13-year-old, who lives with grandma down the street. We joke with her because we call her number 5. But there's some truth in it. And so she comes and goes around here as she pleases. And we're fine with that. But how about for you guys? Where are you experiencing the favor of longevity?
Well, our pastoral staff, I read that 4-year statistic, and I was thinking, wow, it's time for them to go.
You tell him that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell Jim.
you know?
Tell Jim. That.
I mean, he's been, what, 15? Is it 15 years? I don't even know.
It would be 2007, the same time I came.
Okay, so 10
Yeah.
years he's been here, and you know, it's grown from 200 or less than 200 to we almost hit 2,000 on Easter weekend.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
did you? That's crazy.
He said 200 salvations, and since we moved into the buildings, like in the last 3 years, and now we're up to three different locations, and I think that longevity, we take it for granted because they've been here so long, and you just when you think about, well, actually, we extended a permanent call to them, so they're not voted on every year.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm seeing the benefits of longevity.
Yeah.
The people that are, that have been called into ministry here, and you can see the problems of a lack of longevity in the other churches in town, which are, a lot of them are struggling.
Sure.
I think they're all struggling, really. So, we're the only one that's really, grown and is, that I see do anything in the community too.
Yeah, remind me again, how many population size of Allendale is approximately what?
I don't know. Is it 5,000, 6,000, something like that? I don't even know what it is.
Okay. And how many churches do you know? Approximately, you have any idea?
Well, we've got we have the Baptist church, and then there's there's one, two, I think there's four Reformed churches.
Yeah.
So those could all die, and I'd be happy with that.
Okay.
And we've got the Catholic Church. We've got one Catholic church that's not very, not really very big. So.
Yeah, but it's less than 20, right?
What's that? Oh, 20 churches.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in town. Right
you wouldn't say there's more than 20.
No, I'd say there's like 6.
Okay.
Including us, 7 or 8, I guess.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I wonder then, it'd be simple to kind of find out the math then in terms of attendance, weekend worship attendance in your city. If you have 5,000 and you guys, I think you average what, 12, 13, 1,400 on a weekend?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So you have a fifth of the community population. You're doing something right, that's fantastic. Yeah. And how about you, Kathy? How are you experiencing in favor of longevity? Or you could talk about the church, or you could talk about you personally.
Well, I actually thought about this morning as I was downstairs in the fort with our kids, and how watching these new little, we've had these little kindergartners, they're almost first graders now, and at school as well, as you see that, you start to get to know these kids and just growing up with them. And so today, looking at, like, I ran into, last week I ran into Ella Copeland, and I thought, man, you're not a little kid anymore. And so that part, we've been here, I guess 4 or 5 years. And so to have, that is some longevity. I was thinking longevity, like long, but, I think it's being there, and the kids know, Miss Kathy's going to be in the fort. And there was a part of me this year that didn't know if I'd still be able to do it. And there were a couple of times where, I probably missed 3 times this year. I got, like strep throat or something, but But there was one Sunday I sent Julie and Nikki both an email and said, I am exhausted. I have got to rest today. And so yeah, that was mine, is just, being there and seeing those kids and the depth of conversations that happen with those. I have a small group of boys, and I've been down there for 3 years now. And so it's just pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's so cool. And so grateful for you and the others who invest in those kids, my kids. So grateful for that. Well, I want to be attentive to our time, and I think we're at a good place where we can kind of wrap up for this week.
Okay.
Know that next Sunday I am traveling, and so we aren't going to meet next Sunday live. We're going to just push it back a week, extend it for another week, and I do believe so. Next week we won't meet live. Be back in 2 weeks. And I'll just tell you now, because you don't want to miss it. In 2 weeks, Sunday night, Alan, the author, is going to join us live.
Oh, and wow.
So, yeah.
How exciting.
Yep. Love to have him join us. And you can ask him. He's a great guy to talk to, and has a lot of stories to share. And so I'm confident that 2 weeks from tonight we're just going to have a great time. For this week, just the challenge. One of the challenges, there's a lot, but one of the challenges for us this week is just to begin to jot down some ordinary ways. Right? You're just talking about the glory of the mundane. What are just some ordinary ways to start practicing, loving people around you? What are some of the ordinary ways you can start the practice of faithfully loving others around you? And so we can discuss that in 2 weeks, but we can also discuss it on Facebook, and talk about what does that look like in ordinary daily life, just loving the people around us. In simple ways. So I appreciate you guys' time. It means so much. Thanks so much, Kathy, for joining us. Jordan, as always, it's a pleasure. I will pray for us right now, and then we will say goodnight. Father God, I want to thank you for your presence in our lives and what you are doing in our cities. I'm so grateful for the reach that Lifestream and Church in Allendale has, and how you are using Jordan and other members of that church who are so deeply committed to the mission and the vision of making disciples in Allendale and beyond. I pray, God, for your richest and your deepest blessings upon them as they continue to pursue that vision with everything they've got. And especially pray for the staff, the pastors, and the ministry leaders there, that you would empower them, give them the creative abilities that they never thought that they had, God, just to continue to press into that and push it forward in new, creative, expansive ways. We want to celebrate that, and it's celebrated in so many ways, especially with stories of transformation, lives that have been made new, and in baptisms and in declarations of trusting in your Son with their lives, by putting their faith in Him. And so we really celebrate that. I also celebrate our church and what you're doing in this city here, Lord, of Topeka. Thank you for the influence that Grace Point has had. Thank you for all the many wonderful leaders and volunteers and the servant leaders who make weekends so much fun for kids and for adults, and they make it exciting to follow Jesus, and kids want to come back, and families want to come back, and people feel loved and cared for. And I just pray, God, that you would allow us to continue to do this more than we ever thought or imagined we'd be able to. Pray that you would, as we go about our week, you would help us to be cognizant and to recognize ways in which we can, ordinary ways which we can just simply love on people. And what that looks like, I'm not sure, God, but I pray for opportunities to do that this week, and that we get the opportunity to celebrate it, either the next time we're together or through Facebook conversations. So we love you. We thank you for this time. We thank you for your work in our lives. We give you all the praise and glory, because you are God, you are good, and you love us so well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Hey, nice meeting you, Kathy.
Yeah,
Nice
good to
seeing
meet
you,
you,
Josh.
Jordan.